Hi, everyone. We're back. We're back again.
Hey,
Oh, wow. We already have a question that came in. That's pretty awesome. Hey, everyone. So we're back to talk again about Core Web Vitals. I know you're probably sick of us talking about it at this point, but spoiler alert, we're not going to stop talking about it until May and probably even after that when we learn, what's been going on. So while we're waiting for people to join the live stream, join the broadcast, why don't you just hit a like on the video so that you're alerted to any other thing that we do when we go live. You'll get a notification that we have some more information for you. I mean, we're learning about Core Web Vitals kind of at the same time that you're learning about them. So super important for you to just stay abreast of everything that we learn and everything that we're looking into. Just go ahead and what do the kids say now? Smash that like button.
smash it, yeah.
Yeah, smash the like button. Give us a like and tell us in the comments where you're viewing from so we can see. I think last time Nils and I went live, we had a predominantly American Canadian audience because we went live a lot later. So I think probably we've got some other areas of the world. Adam, why don't you remind everyone where I'm so sorry, where you're coming from. It's so late for you.
Yeah, it's actually not too bad. I'm dialing in from Cairns, far north Queensland in Australia. And yeah, it is a quiet neck of the woods actually, because when I'm awake, it's normally the US is asleep, or the EU is asleep. So it's one of the two. So I have to be up at weird times.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for you. Your whole schedule has been just like annihilated because of us.
That's all good.
Yeah, so I'm located in Brussels, Belgium, and I think for the first time since our however many quarantines we've been in, it's like beautiful outside. It is so gorgeous. It's about 25 degrees, perfectly sunny. So, guys, put your questions in early so I can, wrap this up and go enjoy some vitamin D. All
Yeah,
right.
that first question's a good one too.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And hi, Mark. Thank you for joining us. As I always say, guys, don't be shy. Ask us questions throughout the broadcast so that we can actually answer them in real time. We do have some pre-submitted questions, some questions that we didn't get to last week. So we will have a lot to talk about. I think that, it's been about 2.5 minutes. So let's go ahead and just get started. So first and foremost, let's give a little quick recap of what Nils and I spoke about last week. So last Thursday, Nils, who is the CTO and co-founder of WooRank, and I talked about, well, mostly Nils, not so much me, talked about the technicalities of Core Web Vitals. So what is Google actually looking for? What are the new metrics that you need to pay attention to? How are these things measured? And what can you sort of look at to see if you're on the right track? So just to give everyone a really brief overview, and then I'll toss it over to Adam. So what are Core Web Vitals? In Google's words, and I'm reading from a script right now because I don't want to mess it up. So in Google's words, they are a set of real-world user-centered metrics that quantify key aspects of the user experience. They measure dimensions of web usability, such as load time, interactivity, and the stability of content as it loads. So what does that mean? More concretely, Google's Core Web Vitals are how Google quantifies and then scores a particular web page's user experience, which is why the incorporation of CWV into Google's ranking is kind of known as like the page experience update. So, what exactly are the factors? We gauge all the things that Adam's going to talk about, but there are 3 main metrics that we're looking for. And something to just keep in mind when we talk about Core Web Vitals, and really when we talk about anything that Google has been doing lately, it's about user experience. Like Google wants to make sure that your users are having the absolute best possible time on their site or on your site, on your client's site. And these metrics do help them to understand if your client or if your visitor is actually having a good experience when they visit your site. So Adam, why don't you take it over and go ahead and talk about the types of metrics that Google is actually looking at.
Okay.
And guys, again, please put your questions in because this stuff is heavy. This is more technical than some of the stuff we talk about ordinarily. So if you have questions just in the moment, please let us know and we can answer them in real time. All right, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, and look, it's a really good point to make that it's all about usability, because what Google's trying to do here is be as smart as a person. It's trying to invent an algorithm that is like the average user who sits down and uses a website. So they're trying to use like mathematics and algorithms to determine some really tricky stuff. A lot of the other algorithm updates have been fairly easy for Google. Keyword counting and making sure you have right kinds of healthy backlinks. But this user experience update has been in the works for a long time. And that's why we've had so much heads up about it. And in fact, the three, so I'll go through them. There's obviously the first one. They've all got acronyms, which is fantastic. Thank you, Google. I like this page. So this is the web.dev website. It's kind of the authority from Google about Core Web Vitals. And I actually think that this little section here is probably the most useful part of the page. So LCP, or as they say, loading. And I really like that. So largest contentful paint. So that's the first metric. So, and essentially, like it says, loading, how long does it take for a web page to load? Now, we've known actually for quite a long time that, if your page takes more than a couple of seconds to load, people start getting cranky. In fact, I used to say in workshops, if people get cranky after 2 seconds, Google gets cranky. So it's like that. This has been brought right into the foreground now, and they're actually saying, at 2.5 seconds, we start saying that your website needs improvement. So it's all about that largest contentful paint or the loading time. It is a little bit technical about which part of the site sort of loads first, but just think about it as loading time, because the trick here is you don't have to be an SEO or a developer or some kind of techno guru to understand this stuff. So the next metric, FID, or first input delay, think about that as interactivity. How long until not just the website loads, but the page, but until I can start using it? Because we've all been there where a page loads quite fast, but then you start scrolling and you're not quite getting traction just yet. So there's this delay that prevents you from engaging with the website, that input delay, and that's also a bad thing. Google doesn't want websites like that, simply because we don't want websites like that. And the last one I actually find a little bit funny. And anyone who uses Google AdWords will know what I'm talking about. But visual stability, Google AdWords probably doesn't score very high themselves on CLS. So this is the cumulative layout shift. If you guys have used AdWords, you'll know that when you click on, or you have a multi-account AdWords, and you click on a box, and then you go to click what you think is the account that you want to load, but then all of a sudden Google decides to put your top 3 favorites on the top of the list, and so you end up clicking the wrong account. It can sometimes happen in Google Analytics as well. That's a layout shift, and people find that really annoying because it's really, really frustrating when you see a website, you go to click on something and it moves because an advert pops in or it hasn't finished loading, so it moves around. So these sort of 3 usability core metrics, Google's being very forward with and saying, if you guys are, not going to be in like the top percentile of all the websites that we study, it's not good enough. And like I said, SEO people have been saying it for years and years and years. 2-second page load time, simple usability stuff, and now Google's coming out and actually quantifying it all. So yeah, it's a good time.
Now, why don't we go ahead and take Mark's question, because let's just keep everyone engaged. Mark had to. Okay, I'm going to put it on the screen for everyone just to see quickly. So Mark wanted to know. Oh, sorry, Adam. I'm cut off your head with that comment. Let me put us back here. Okay, so Mark wanted to know, the majority of our users are desktop users, but how will Google rank us? Do they use the mobile score or the desktop score? Mobile is hard to get good scores, but desktop passes well on GTM tricks.
Okay, it's a good question because I have an answer for it. That's why it's a good question. So if the majority of your users are desktop users, and obviously you know this because you're looking at analytics, then you do not have to worry as much about the mobile experience. But I really want to sort of add a disclaimer to that. Over the last 5 years, I have seen update after update focusing and pushing mobile. While it's okay to at the moment, maybe to say, okay, we don't have such a great mobile experience, but we've only got 1% of users on mobile, so we won't take much of a hit. I can't be sure. I don't work at Google, but over the last 5 years, I've seen so many updates come out pushing mobile. And I honestly, deep down inside, believe that you will need to worry about this. It's something you should worry about. And I know it's harder to get a good score on mobile. 10 times harder, 20 times harder. It's a real pain. But if it was my website I was building, I would be making sure as much as I could that I focused on getting the mobile experience down pat first, and then the desktop, even if the majority of my users were desktop, just because of the way I've seen Google shifting towards that. So yeah, look, you're okay, but I wouldn't be too comfortable.
That should be like a motto for Google. Like, you're okay, but I wouldn't. Don't get too comfortable.
Don't get too comfy in that seat. That's right.
Right. Okay. Now I have to remember how to remove this comment. Sorry. Just give me 2 seconds. Hide. All right. Okay. So now that we've kind of done an overview of Core Web Vitals, we've taken a live question. I think that now we should get to the real meat of why everyone is here and why everyone is watching. So, as I said, Nils and I talked about, like, what is Core Web Vitals? Why is it important? Why should you care? Now let's talk about what can you do to actually get ready? What are the things that you should be looking at now, and how can you use, well, I'll let Adam talk about the tools that you can use, but what really realistically can you do before this May update, which is creeping ever closer?
Yep. Yeah, and look, that's the brass tacks. That's what it's all coming down to. And, I think, for those of you, and I hope, because this is kind of part 2 to a 2-part series, but those of you who watched the last week's episode, hopefully you'll have the understanding now and the foundation of where this has all come from, why it's here, the reasons behind it. And tonight I really want to focus on what can an average person do about it? What can a website owner do about it? I mean, I'm a website owner. What can I do about Core Web Vitals? So we're going to look at some really straightforward stuff. Not going to get too technical because again, Google even says on their website, you don't need to be a massive technical person to understand this. You just need to have a good memory for acronyms. That's about the only thing I'll say. So look, what can we do? The first thing, let's look at the 3 areas. So we've got the loading, LCP, we've got interactivity, FID, and we've got visual stability, or CLS. I really don't like the acronyms, but let's look at the tools that you can use to measure these. And that's the first step: measure and then fix. So I'm going to go over to, now I know last week we looked a lot too at some of the other Google. I'm going to focus more on Google Search Console tonight rather than page speed insights and that kind of thing, because that was looked at last week. So let's I'm going to jump straight into to Core Web Vitals, Core Web Vitals section of Google Search Console. Now this is actually this is live data. It's from a friend or a colleague of mine who's allowed me to really have a poke and prod at his website tonight, but he did say I had to give him a plug at some stage, but we'll see about that. So let's just dive. I'm going to go right back to the home page. So we've just logged into his Google Search Console. So hopefully you will have this. Oh, look, and there's a great reminder. Google takes every chance to remind us. Mobile first indexing. Yeah, Google's serious about this stuff. Got it. And they've been putting it out for about 2 years now, that pop up. So I'm going to go into enhancements, core web vitals. They have actually got a section for it. So if you've seen Search Console, you're going to know this. If you haven't used Search Console yet, this is the reason to get stuck into it. It's free to use. If you've got Google Analytics up and running, you can essentially get Search Console up and running very quickly too. So if we click into that, we're going to get the two reports. So this is very similar to Page Speed Insights, where you would, except with Lighthouse, you'd kind of get a nicer little circle with a number in it. This is kind of the same thing. We're getting a result for mobile and a result for desktop. Now, in this case, on the mobile version, Google has classified in 3 different ways the content of our website. Now, because this is coming from Search Console, this is actual real data. So if we go back to the terms again that we talked about last week, we've got field data and we've got lab data. And just a quick recap, field data is kind of like, as the name suggests, it's in the field, it's live data. It's kind of, it's data that's based on real world events and real things loading, whereas lab data is not. It's the opposite. It's kind of the sort of information that you'll get from reports that are done under a certain set of conditions, a certain prescribed set of conditions. So you might be looking at the speed of your website using a 3G connection. So that's lab data because it's actually throttling your speed and looking at the report. So you'll get different scores. And Courtney and Neil showed you that last week when they were both getting different scores for the same content. So with Google Search Console, the information, I feel, it's a lot more accurate. It's more of an average of your content speed in real time. So as it's getting sort of reported back to Google, it's measuring it. So we've got here mobile, 0 poor URLs. So that's just basically saying straight away, essentially there's nothing too serious to worry about. Nothing that needs improvement. So there's always that mid-ground area where it's like, well, if you got time, let's fix this as well. And it's just saying, hey, we've actually found 28 good URLs. So happy days. But now you can actually see it was only a couple of days ago that this actually got fixed. And that happened to follow probably, only about a week after I had a conversation with my friend about he had to do some work on his website because I wanted to use his website in an upcoming webinar. So he's obviously gone and got his developer to sort it out for him, but his mobile is running smooth, really, really smooth. So nice work, Jason. That's really good. Desktop. Okay, on the other hand, with desktop, and this is unusual because normally we see the errors on the mobile. And this is why, again, Search Console for me is a lot more accurate information than just running a Speed Insights report. So we've got 8 URLs that are showing as poor. So they need attention straight away. None that are in the middle, and essentially none that are good. Now, the other thing to keep in mind too with Google Search Console is that the data does change, and it's based on indexing. So obviously you can see straight away that we have a mix mash here because we're saying, well, we've only got 8 URLs on desktop, but we've got 28 on mobile. That's because Google has indexed more of the mobile website recently. And that's why, again, I say you have to be really, really conscious about focusing on mobile websites. As you can see, the data is right here. Google's indexed a lot more, 3 times more than it has on the desktop, just recently. But anyway, let's open a report. Let's go to desktop because that's the one that's got some problems. So I can just sort of click here if I want to have a good look at what's actually happening, because the one thing that you get here too that you don't get from PageSpeed Insights is you get the history. So you get a histogram of all the errors that have been measured over time. And I really like this because when you run PageSpeed Insights, you're getting an immediate result. If you get a good score, you might be like, hey, that's great, I'm going to move on. But what you don't realize is you just ran that report at a really good time of the day. 75% of the other time, your website's not running so well. So this comes in to rescue by saying, hey, while you've been away, we've actually been testing your website constantly. And in fact, there were a couple of need improvement issues that popped up from time to time. So we can have a look at that, because that may be something that rears its head again later on. And in fact, we've had, you can see we've had up to 36 poor pages. So 36 pages that have showed up in the past as not good. So they've been fixed. Jason's done his work, and we're down to currently 8. Now, if we go down here, we'll actually see the description of what's happening up here. So I'm just going to turn those off. We'll just focus on the poor. And what we have is the old CLS issue, so the cumulative layout shift. If we just click into that, we're also going to be given, now look, this will depend on traffic too, but we're going to be given some example URLs from Google. But really what they want you to do here is, well, there's 2 things. That they want you to validate this error, i.e. they want you to go and fix it and then come back and tell them so that they can recrawl and test again. But they also want you to be consciously aware that you need to come back and look at this thing like more than once. It's not a set and forget. So as you can see, it's saying, for example, the homepage and other similar URLs, so other pages of the website, have been a little bit laggy in terms of the layout stability. So there's a little bit of shifting in that going around. Now, I do believe that, like I said, my friend has fixed these errors. So I'm going to validate. And that just tells Google, hey, Google, we have done as you asked. We've gone and validated. We've gone and fixed it. Please come and rescan the website and check that you're happy with it. Again, technically, you don't really need to validate the error. It will eventually come back, but this kind of just puts you to, I'm not going to say the front of the queue, but it puts you further forward in the queue. It's actually saying it's going to complete this validation within 28 days, so don't hold your breath. Now, as a Search Console owner, you will get a message that validation has begun, and you should also get a message once the validation has failed or passed as well. So that's great. So we're using the tool to actually go, okay, this is how we validate that something's been fixed. Now, if I just go back, so I want to go back to Core Web Vitals. And I'm just going to quickly look at the mobile because I want to see the histogram. Has there been any problems in the past? So there's been no major problems, but again, that CLS issue is popping up. And it's probably the rotating banner on the homepage of the website, I would think. So it's never registered as a complete error, but it has said, hey, this needs improvement. But as of the last couple of days, it's been perfect. So this is something that I would want to keep an eye on. It's not a problem now, but it could be a problem again in the future. So this is why I like this report, because Page Speed Insights will give you a score right now and and it's different based on your connection to the internet and how many plugins you're running in your browser and that kind of thing. Whereas Search Console, you can see I'm not even in incognito and I'm getting accurate data. And this data will look exactly the same to anyone who has access to this account. So it's more reliable information. And as a SEO person, yeah, Search Consoles are my best friend. So if we go back, so that would be the primary technical tool that I would be using to monitor and repair. Well, not really repair, but monitor and validate fixes. Repairing the fixes is kind of another story. Yeah, actually, and that's where it does get a little tricky. Also, if we jump to WooRank, I've got the same website. You can see that he scores really quite well, 72. So that's fantastic. If we go down to performance, I actually reckon these three are probably the easiest things to look at. Asset minimification, asset compression, asset cacheability. These are all performance things. I like to see greens across the board here. I mean, obviously, the more greens on a WooRank report, the better, but particularly around the performance area, because these are the things that are, lead into all this usability. By having assets that aren't minified, you're going to basically have problems with loading times. By not having compression and cacheability, you might have stability issues. So while they don't say LCP and FID and that sort of thing, these are more real world reasons as to why you might be having problems. So if you've got problems in Core Web Vitals, and you've seen that in Search Console, go back to WooRank and check. And as you see, I refreshed this today, and Jason scored perfect across the board because he has fixed his stuff. But a week ago, these were yellow. So yeah, it's a great way to just quickly check and then use a more advanced tool to go that sort of extra layer deep. So yeah, I think, is that a... Courtney,
yeah, I think that's perfect. For sure, everything that we've talked about so far, I mean, I guess it's important to note and just reiterate that these are things that you can be looking at right now. It's not like you have to wait until May for Google to be like, oh, surprise, like here's what we're looking at. Like it's all already in your Google Search Console account. The difference is like in May, it's going to become a ranking factor. So right now is the time for you to go ahead and look at it, get it fixed. And then as soon as Google starts actually considering that when they're suggesting your site to people who are having queries that relate to you, then that stuff's already fixed. So that's great. I think another thing that we wanted to talk about is a new, I'm sorry, my cat just jumped up. So hopefully my cat doesn't make a guest appearance here. So another thing we wanted to speak about today, something we glossed over last week was so you can see my screen now, was the assistant that is now a new part of Google. It's a brand new feature that we've just released. This is a really important way for you to actually gather all of that website data that WooRank provides and then have it delivered right there on your site. So you don't have to be toggling back and forth between different tools. All of that is all just right there sitting on your site, ready for you to use and implement. So this hopefully should look familiar to everyone who's watching. This is your project dashboard in the WooRank site. So just to quickly show you how to get the assistant, you can either go here to this tab in the navigation menu on the left-hand side. You will see a quick illustration that our very talented designer Rodrigo did with my annoying voice overlaid. And you can see here, okay, the WooRank assistant is successfully installed. If you don't know how to install it yet, you just go right here to project settings. And in the project settings, you will see a tab to then, so you'll see it says new. It's the very last tab. Right now, just so everyone knows, the assistant is free for any WooRank subscriber. I can't guarantee that that's going to be the case forever. So if you have WooRank, go ahead and get this implemented now before we start, cha-ching. And if you're not a WooRank subscriber, we have a 14-day free trial. So there's really no excuse for you to not get this implemented on your site ASAP. So you can see here, if you scroll down, everybody with a WooRank account that has started a project, very important, you have to start a project to get access to this, will be able to implement their unique code snippet. It's actually very easy to do. You don't have to be very incredibly technical to get this fixed. You can either put it in your Google Tag Manager or you can go straight into your CMS and put it there. If you're unclear about how to do that, just shoot one of us an email, support@woorank.com, and we can try to walk you through it. But either way, this is unique to you, so that once you put that into your website, you can go over to your website and you'll see down in the lower left-hand corner that we have the WooRank assistant. Now, just remember, this is only visible to you if you are logged into your WooRank account. So it's not like everybody who visits your website is going to all of a sudden see this little WooRank widget. That's not the way it works. It's non-intrusive for you as a website owner, and it's completely invisible to anyone who's not logged into your WooRank account. And if you have a single user account, you shouldn't be having multiple people logged in at the same time with your account anyway. But either way, so you'll see this little widget pop up. This will be on any one of your pages. And you can then just click to expand it. you'll see on the bottom here, your little kind of mini dashboard pops up. So essentially what you'll be able to see is everything that the WooRank tool brings to you, but on a page level. So right here, we can see we're on the website. I can get a full report. I can get my score. I can get pretty much everything we see that Adam just showed for his friend's website. We have everything there. We have the explanations of why things are incorrect. We can peruse our entire review, or we can really easily just focus on, okay, what needs to be improved on my site? Okay, where are the errors on my site? And if you're in there and you're fixing it, you can immediately refresh. The other really great thing about the WooRank Assistant is that even if we haven't crawled that page in our site crawl, you can force it to crawl on your own site without having to dip back into WooRank. So if we encounter a page, I don't think there's any page on this site that we haven't crawled, but if we encounter one of your pages that has not yet been crawled, you can just click OK, crawl now, and then you'll get the exact same information that you've gotten. Now, talking about specifically the Core Web Vitals metrics, now I want to focus right here on the speed. So you'll be able to get real-time speed information about your website. This is all coming from Google, so the people who are responsible for Core Web Vitals are the ones that are looking at the stuff and providing this information. So you'll be able to see, how long is it taking for my page to load? What has my average page load time been for the past couple of days, the past couple of weeks? All of that is available for you so that you can really take even a deeper dive into your performance metrics while you're right there on your site. As I said, this is free to any WooRank subscriber right now, so please don't hesitate to do that before we start, taking money from you. All right, so I'm gonna unshare my screen now, and I think now would be a great time for us to start taking some questions that were pre-submitted. I noticed we have a pretty shy crowd today, so if you have any questions at all, seriously, put them in there. That's why we're here. I mean, Google's Core Web Vitals as a ranking factor is coming in about a month. So if you have questions, if you have hesitations, if this seems complicated to you, utilize us. Ask us questions. We're happy to help. We're going to be putting out a ton more information on our blog. Already, there's a lot of information on our blog. We have Intro to Core Web Vitals. We now, at the end of the day, we'll have 2 articles, one specifically on cumulative layout shift, one specifically on largest contentful paint, and all of that is going to be on our blog. Our next one will be about the FID. And then we'll start doing even a deeper dive about some of the questions that you guys have asked, like how will this impact my advertisements? How will this impact my desktop versus mobile? So stay tuned to that. And of course, as always, stay tuned to our YouTube channel because we do a lot of these little videos. So first question that we sort of touched on last week, but we thought it'd be better to talk to you about, Adam. Mm-hmm. What is your stance on good vitals, but with bad page speed insight score? Say that 5 times fast, sub 40. Do you think it counts in the May update, or Core Web Vitals in Google Search Console is the data to look at?
Okay, well, I've expressed my bias. I am a Search Console fanboy, but all these tools have a purpose, and used in the right circumstance, they're all going to add value. PSI, or Page Speed Insights, is a really good tool for getting that on-the-spot measurement in potentially a bad situation. I use PSI when I'm on a mobile phone in the back of, or if you know where Cairns is, if you're up somewhere in the hills near Mariba or something, I'll jump on my mobile phone and load up a website and do a test, because then I'm going to get it at its worst. Going to get it over 2G or 3G. Guys probably don't think we still have 2G, but we do in Australia. And I want to see what it ranks, in that very worst of circumstances. Whereas Google Search Console, as I said, you're going to get this histogram, and that's really important as well. So if you have good vitals, but you have a bad page insight score, the first thing I would say is don't be too stressed, because did you run that page let's just call it PSI. Did you run the PSI or the PSI at a bad time of the day? Run it again. Get your friend to run it. If I was doing PSI testing, I'd probably run it 4 or 5 times a day. during peak hour. Definitely don't run it when you go home from the office and everyone's streaming Netflix, from your house. That's going to affect it. So yes, it counts. It all goes into the algorithm and it's all part of it and it all counts. But Search Console is going to give you a more holistic view of your performance. And as long as you don't get sub 40, like again and again and again, you shouldn't have a problem, to be honest. I hope that answers that.
Yeah, I think so. We have a few comments that just came in. Amelia, you'll see that I answered you in the chat. Unfortunately, since we don't have too much time left, I don't think that we have time to go over all of Core Web Vitals again, but you can always rewatch this webinar. First, probably from about minute 3 to about minute 15, we're actually talking about what Core Web Vitals are. And then you can do a deeper dive. Even if you watch our webinar from last week with Nils, that does like a very deep drill into like what these things mean, how you can look at lab data versus field data. So just check our channel. Everything that we've talked about with Core Web Vitals is already on there. Also, Cabin Teely Brewer, I think I got it this time, wants to know if we can have another session to do after they've done some work on Core Web Vitals, because they'll definitely have more questions after that, for sure. Don't be hesitant about that. I mean, we are definitely going to do another session before the Core Web Vitals update goes live. So yes, just stay tuned. Again, if you like our videos, if you subscribe to our channel, you won't even have to pay attention to your emails. You'll just get an alert in YouTube that we're going live.
Sure.
Okay, so next question, is Google recommending that all of my pages hit these thresholds? What would be the benefit?
Okay. Yeah, you should have all your pages hit the minimum thresholds. And by minimum thresholds, what we're talking about specifically are, if I can share my screen again, Courtney, just so we're all on the same page, so to speak, quite literally. By thresholds, and if you want to quickly look up, just go to type in Core Web Vitals WooRank, and you're going to get this article in the top of the listings there. And we've got the metrics here, and just a nice little display. See, the threshold is in the green. That's what we're really talking about. So Google has indicated that Core Web Vitals are measured separately from web traffic, which typically has been the gold standard for websites. How much traffic do you get, that kind of thing. You go right back to the days when we had page counters. So someone actually asked this question it was on Twitter. It was a little while ago, but not like years ago. It was kind of, I think, last year. And they tweeted it, and John Mueller actually picked it up and responded. So I think it's valid just to go over it quickly. The question was, let's say Core Web Vitals values of my website are quite good compared to my competitors. However, my traffic is much lower than my competitors. How important is site traffic together with Core Web Vitals in the search results? Can a website with good CWV beat competitor websites that have millions of visitors? So, can a small, nimble, perfectly designed, beautiful to use website beat a behemoth? Absolutely. But John didn't actually just say absolutely. he said, well, so for Core Web Vitals, the traffic to your site is not that important. And people have quoted him many times on this. What's important is that you reach the threshold that they have set. So, for example, he goes on to say, like, if we don't know anything about your website, then obviously we don't know that maybe it's a really fast website. The data that we use in search is from the Chrome User Experience Report, which is an aggregate from users that are opted into this system, so kind of analytics users and that kind of thing. So the Core Web Vitals provides a baseline for your website. And he goes on to say that it doesn't matter if millions of users are seeing that website or not. It's about the quality of the experience that even a couple of thousand users will have, looking at that website. So what is the benefit to you? Well, the benefit to you is that, you get this right, and you could, take on some serious competition and actually outperform in SERP some of the bigger guys. And so this is a real level the playing field type of algorithm update, which I really like for that reason. So that's the benefit, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. When he said, "Oh, absolutely," I was like, I doubt John ever said
No, he
absolutely
wouldn't know.
to any question that has ever been asked. All right, let's move on. So another pre-submitted question was, when I look at Lighthouse, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with,
Yeah.
when I look at Lighthouse, I see no errors. Why do I see errors when I look at Google Search Console?
Well, actually, I would hope someone in the audience might be able to answer that question now. Well, and look, I'm not being facetious. Lighthouse is giving you that, instantaneous check. You're prodding the website there and then. So you might not see any errors because you're doing it at a perfect time of the day. You've got great internet connection. You're on 5G, which I wish we had in Cairns. And, boom, the website loads and it's fantastic. However, you go into Search Console, like we did before, and I still got it on the site. And we notice that in the history, there's problems. So there's no problems today, Monday. So we don't have data for today, but the problems were there in the past. So if we ran a PSI now or a Lighthouse report, it would probably say, "Oh, everything's fine." But we have had issues in the past, and that's why it's important to use both tools. So yeah, that's why you can see an error in one and not in the other. Typically, you won't see it the other way around. Like Google Search Console will always give you that histogram of errors in the past.
All right. And the last question that we have, seems like nobody really has any live questions today, but again, we will be going live again at the end of April to talk more about Core Web Vitals. So don't worry if you want to take some time to let this sink in and soak a little bit and then try to make some changes and then come back with questions. That's perfectly fine. So last question that we have for today's session, it would be interesting to know what further guidance there might be for websites who are running ads. At the moment, the two options to satisfy CLS, which again is the cumulative layout shift when something loads and then boom, pushes all the content down, you accidentally click the wrong thing. Super annoying. So the two options for this appear to be either turning off your dynamic ads, which would negatively affect your revenue, or reserve space for ads, potentially leaving a lot of white space.
Okay. And this question I believe came up before, and I had a suspicion, and I did some research over the last week, and I have actually got a link to share with you guys. So it's web.dev, so it's that Google website, and then optimize-CLS. I will post that in the chat.
I put it in the chat already. Everybody.
Oh, cool. Okay. So within, but I'm not going to make you read the whole page, but this is a source for my answer. In short, yes. Google has a whole page, has a whole section dedicated to optimizing the display of your adverts, because there's two things happening here. Google at once, they want you to have ads, and they want people to see ads, but they don't want the ads to get in the way and actually cause issues at the same time, even though it's kind of like both their product. So what they recommend essentially is to what we call statically reserve a space for the advert. Now, I know that will create white space, but if your page is loading in under 2 seconds, or much faster, if your CLS score is really good, then that white space won't actually be there for long, because your page will render, there'll be a little white box, the content will render underneath it, and then within a few seconds, the white box turns into the ad, the dynamically shown ad. So this is the best way to do it, and I would highly recommend you have a good read of the web dev guide, because obviously Google does not want to penalize people for displaying ads, but at the same time it will if you don't display them correctly. So yeah, that's my answer for that one.
Great. I don't think that there's any other questions that have come in. Just to again, reiterate what we said before. We are going to go live again. So if you want to play around with the stuff that we've talked about, if you want to rewatch, I highly suggest rewatching the webinar with Nils. Rewatch this one once you've watched that, just to see what you can really start doing now. And then at the end of April, we can maybe take a look at maybe a few of your sites. We'll have to get that pre-submitted so we can actually take a look at your Google Search Console. But maybe we could take a look at some of your sites live. We can again show you the difference between the lab data and the field data to see that, you know, we obviously have different results when we're looking at your site. But for sure, right now, I would say if you take anything from this webinar today, go into your Google Search Console, start looking at what these different things might be affecting your site and the way people are able to interact with your site. Go into WooRank, take a look at your performance section, install the assistant, because the assistant right now is at the first, iteration of what the assistant is. It is going to become more robust. We are going to be adding more performance metrics. So now is the time to really download that and get that installed, because right now it's free, as I said. So do that now. Go to your project dashboard. All the instructions on how to install that is already ready for you. So I think that's everything for today. You have our email address, or at least I hope that you do. If you have any questions, I'll just throw this up onto the screen right now. If you have any questions about anything we talked about today, just email support@WooRank.com. We have tons of educational resources already. We'll be adding to that regularly until we go live and after, until Google goes live with the Core Web Vitals update. So anything that you need, just let us know, okay? And thank you again for joining us, as always, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye-bye.